Our scriptures begin for us this morning in the book of Exodus, the 33rd chapter, the 17th through 23rd verse. The Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing that you have asked, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Show me your glory." He said, I will make all my goodness pass before you and proclaim before you the name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But he said, "You cannot see my face, for no one shall see me and live." And the Lord continued, "See, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock. And while my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft by the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." Our gospel reading this morning comes to us from the Gospel of Luke, the 7th chapter, the 18th through 23rd verse. I invite us to stand in both body and spirit as we are willing and able to do so. The disciples of John reported all these things to him. So John summoned two of his disciples and sent them to the Lord to ask, "Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?" When the man had come to him, they said, "John the Baptist has sent us to you to ask, 'Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?'" Jesus had just then cured many people of diseases, plagues, and evil spirits, and had given sight to many who were blind. And he answered them, "Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." These are the words of God, the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Let God's people say amen. I'm going to guess that quite a few of you have traveled this summer. Maybe some of you have traveled across the state, or maybe traveled across the nation to see relatives, and maybe upon seeing them, that greeting just kind of lifts you in a way that maybe not too many other things do. Just seeing their faces when you haven't seen them for such a long time, and it brings back perhaps so many memories and so many possibilities, and you just revel in that presence. For some of you, maybe the ocean is your happy place, as you might say. For we who are landlocked in Kansas, there's something about walking along the seashore and having the waves crash in and watching the tides come in and out. And that there is a uniqueness for us to that just becomes something that is almost beyond words. When the sun rises or the sun sets over the ocean, it just does something for the spirit. Or maybe you're one who is fed by the mountains. Maybe somehow in going to the mountains, that fresh air and that altitude and that view that you get that says to you the world is far bigger than most of the time we think about it. And how can you not believe in God if you see such grandeur and majesty? It's almost beyond words, isn't it? That thing we feel, whether we're at the ocean or we're in the mountains or we're among people we love who have known us all our lives, there's something about it that becomes more than what it just seems to be on the surface. That's really what we're talking about today. We're talking about God as the glorious more of life. That more that moves us, that more that changes us, that more that seeks to see us and to have us see God. Marcus Borg says this: naming what is experienced in the mystery and the mystical is difficult. People who have these experiences not only consistently speak of them as ineffable, but as unnameable, that which is beyond all names. So it is in the story of the call of Moses in the book of Exodus. Moses sees a bush filled with fire and light and yet not consumed, radiant with glory. A voice speaks to him, and Moses asks, "What is your name?" The response is a tautology, I am who I am, or I will be who I will be. A tautology says nothing. It offers no information. It simply repeats itself. In Judaism, the most sacred name of God, so sacred that it may not even be pronounced, comes from this very story. God the sacred is beyond all names. That's hard for us, I think, in a world that we think we can explain so very much of everything, a world that has gotten caught up in an information age, in a technology age where we can find out seemingly anything we want with a push of a button. Where does God fit into that for us? You know, Moses ran from the Egyptian Pharaoh after he had killed one of the slave masters. And he believes he's going to spend the rest of his life tending his father-in-law's sheep. And he's out minding his own business one day, and he sees this bush that is on fire but not being consumed. And so it says that Moses goes over to see. You see, I wonder how many other people had passed it by and not seen anything strange. Not seen anything worth stopping or pausing or turning aside to see. A part of the long poetic novel by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Aurora Leigh, says, "All earth is crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only those who see take off their shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries." I wonder how willing we are to see that which is the presence of God that is in our midst all of the time. And in moments that are so filled with God's glory, sometimes we can't miss it, or sometimes we do because we're just on our way. And we're just not so sure that God is that present with us in all of God's radiant glory. When I had been appointed to Asbury and was leaving where I had served as an associate at North Cross, I was still commuting. I was still living north of the river. I think I was 30, so that was a few years ago. And I had left this beloved community that had seen me graduate from seminary and decided they wanted to keep me for some years after that. And I had not yet come to know and love Asbury because I didn't know them yet. And I was on I-35 and I was making my way over, and suddenly I realized I just needed to pull my car off the road. I just needed to pull off on the shoulder of I-35, and so I did. And I didn't really know why. And I sat there, I don't know if it was a few seconds or a few minutes, and I had some tears, and I said to myself, well, Nanette, this is about leaving a beloved community, the only one you've known as a pastor so far, and not yet knowing a new community that you will come to love with just as much passion. That's what this is about. And I wiped my tears, and I safely, believe it or not, got back on I-35 and made my way over to Asbury. It was in the day before cell phones. That's how old I am. And I got into my office, and the light was blinking with a message. And it was the secretary from North Cross, Geneva. She said, "Nanette, I thought you'd want to know. Bob Hill just died unexpectedly this afternoon." Bob and Dorothy Hill were an older couple that I came to know very early in my ministry at North Cross. Bob was just one of those guys that could do anything: plumbing, electrical, building, carpentry. And so when I led my very first mission trip, I led a trip to Habitat for Humanity to Scott County, Tennessee, the poorest county in the state. I'd never seen poverty like that in my life. And Bob and Dorothy came with. I had no idea what I was doing, but I didn't act like that, you know. I was in charge of everything, of course. And so Bob was the one from whom I learned that indeed you do measure twice, so you only have to cut once. And Bob was the one who, when I quite proudly showed him my section of the front porch railing with the slats nailed in place, said to me, "Nanette, the slats are upside down and backwards." And he was the one who taught me that you don't just say, oh, well, and use it anyway. You tear it out and you do it right. With such love and such compassion did he mentor this pastor. We could decide that I pulled off to the side of the road that afternoon because I was having a hard time leaving one congregation and coming to another, and I think that would be true for me. In that moment, the veil between earth and heaven was very thin. For me, it was God's grace receiving my friend and mentor Bob into God's full presence. An experience that surrounded me, an experience that did something in me that I can't completely explain, that I can't quite name, that I can't quite get a hold of. Moses is with God this morning. We know that Moses has stood in front of God when God's anger was burning hot against God's people because of the golden calf and the worship that God's people gave to that golden calf, and God wants to consume them, and Moses convinces God not to, and now God says to Moses, I want you to continue to lead the people toward the land of promise. And Moses says, you haven't told me who will go with you. And God says, I will send my messenger with you, an angel. Malek, I will send my messenger. And Moses says again, but God, I don't know this messenger. I won't go another step unless you go with us. That's the kind of relationship Moses had with God. And we stand back and think, what a marvelous relationship that must have been. What a unique and particular and peculiar relationship that must have been. And God says, okay, Moses, because I know you by name, I will go with you and I will give you rest. And then God renames God's self, or God adds to God's name of I am who I am, I will be who I will be, because God says, I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. God says, because of you, Moses, I'm filled with grace and mercy. And I will make my goodness to pass by you, because Moses said, let me see your glory. I just want more of you, God, don't we? We just want more. Show me your glory. And God says, Moses, I will indeed cause my goodness to pass before you, but you cannot see my face and live. So I want you to stand on that rock, and when I'm about to pass by, I will place you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand so that you shall not see my face. But after I am past, you'll be able to see my back walking by. Now, in other places, it says that Moses was unique because he was the only one who saw God face to face, who had conversation with God face to face. And so we wonder, is that an inconsistency, or is it that God says to Moses, you have seen me indeed as much as you can take, but no one can completely comprehend the glory and majesty that is God. And so I allow you to have these glimpses, what it is that you can experience and live through, what it is you can have come into your life and reassure you, but not stay in a box that you can unlock anytime you want. I am beyond all knowing, and I am closer than the breath you breathe. Are we willing? Are we willing to allow God to be that glorious more? He's just better at saying stuff than I am. Mysterious and mystical experiences change the question of whether God exists. To say the obvious, God does. The question of God's existence is no longer about whether there is another being in addition to the universe. Rather, the question becomes, what is our reality? Is it simply the space-time world of matter and energy as disclosed by ordinary sense perception and contemporary science, or is it suffused by a more, a radiant and glorious more? Do we want that more of God enough? That we're willing to allow our senses and our instincts and our heart and our spirit and our soul to stop us? Maybe it is in the mountains, maybe it is at the seashore, or maybe it's walking down the street. Maybe it's sitting in your car. Maybe it's a moment that you can't explain at a sunrise or a sunset or the birth of a child. Maybe it's standing at the gravesite of someone you love more than life itself, and you suddenly get a sense that it's going to be okay. That nothing will ever be all right again without them. But it's going to be okay because there is a presence. John the Baptist is sitting in prison today. John the Baptist who baptized Jesus. John the Baptist whose sole purpose was to prepare for the Messiah. And John asked the same question that Moses asked, only in a different way and from a different setting. He says to his followers from prison, go and ask Jesus, are you the one who was to come, or should we wait for another? Show me your glory, Jesus. Are you the Messiah that I prepared the way for? Because I'm sitting here in prison and Rome is still in charge. And people are being crucified, and we're being oppressed, and I will not get out of prison without losing my life. So tell me, are you the one who is to come, or is there another? Show me your glory. And when the followers of John come to Jesus, I wonder if his heart broke a little bit, because he knew John the Baptist, and he loved John the Baptist, and he has great esteem for John the Baptist. But instead of just saying yes or no, Jesus says, tell John what you see and hear. The blind receive their sight. The lame walk. The lepers are cleansed. The deaf hear. The dead are raised. And the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me. What an odd ending to Jesus' affirmation to John. But let's think about that. Blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me. What Jesus is saying to John is, John, don't be offended. You have done what God asked you to do. I am that Messiah. Even though I'm not doing what the world and you have expected me to do, I'm not replacing a political power. I'm not turning upside down our economic structures. Not in one fell swoop. I am living God's vision that God is making available for you to live as well. I wonder if there are any of us in this room today, or that I will see throughout the morning in church, or that I and you will see out in the world as we go home this afternoon, or as we go out to eat, or as we go shopping for school supplies. I wonder if any of the people we pass or any of the people we see will be those people who think to themselves, this is not where I thought I would be at this point in my life. I've not accomplished what I thought I would accomplish. My family they aren't perfect, and my children haven't always made the best decisions. And so what does that mean about me as a parent? I haven't been as honoring of my parents as perhaps I could have been. I haven't been able to be a good neighbor every step of the way. I haven't loved God with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. I haven't loved my neighbor as myself. I wonder if there's any of us in here today, anyone in the world today, who feels like and wonders, am I what I'm supposed to be? Am I where I'm supposed to be? Have I done what I'm supposed to do? And Jesus says, no less to John than to us, yes. Yes, God did not expect you to hang the moon in the sky. God has been with you in this journey, and if this journey has disappointed you, if this journey has been filled with faults and failures as well as celebrations and joys, God has been with you every step of the way, and that, friends, has made wherever you are in this moment, has made the journey to that place worth it. If you have loved and been loved, if you have lived your life with some meaning, take no offense at how Jesus has guided you, how God has urged and nudged you. God was ready to destroy the world, and God remembered Noah. God was ready to destroy God's people, and God remembered Moses. God was ready to destroy the law, and God brought Jesus. And the world was ready to destroy Jesus. And God loved enough to bring resurrection. Not only for Jesus, but through Jesus. that we might experience that gift as well. All earth is crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only those who see take off their shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries. Open your eyes. I say to myself as well, open our ears, open our hands, open our hearts. Perhaps we'll catch a glimpse of God's glory. Amen.